Let me start here with my conclusion. 1 week ago today, there was an incident in the sport of hand-egg. And hand-egg may sound odd, I'll explain that later. But one player pulled off another player's helmet and hit him over the head with it, resulting in the longest player suspension in NFL history. The incident itself is not a big deal to me. These are all highly successful, well-paid professionals. No one died, no one went to jail, and no one was even injured. But I came across the story from several news sites. I like to read the same stories from different sites to get different biases. Every news source I read, BBC, the Clinton News Network, Faux News, NPR, they all presented the story in exactly the same way. The pictures framed and all of the videos were cropped to show one player either pulling off the other player's helmet or hitting him over the head with it. And all of the penalties were against the single player who pulled off the helmet. There were even discussions of charging him with an assault. It hopefully already sounds obvious to you that there are major gaps in the story. Things like, why was the player so angry? And why are these clips so narrowly cropped? And is there another side to this story? I, however, accepted the story as it was presented to me, and that's mainly what bothers me. That and the gross misrepresentation of an individual by the media. The injustice of it offends me. But none of this occurred to me until a work buddy showed me a video of the full event, a clip that was actually somewhat challenging for me to rediscover to make this video. I continually preach that we must question our worldview, that the discovery of being wrong is the opportunity to become less wrong, to improve our understanding, and that the best beliefs are those that we try diligently to disprove. Yet, I allowed the Clinton News Network and Faux News to coordinate with NPR in leading me to the same gross misrepresentation of an individual. And I make this video to present a counter-narrative in his defense, and to remind myself to look for gaps and to try to disprove what I think is true. Without further ado, here's the complete clip in question. So I want to break this down from the beginning of the conflict because things get a little bit nuanced. At the start, we have the quarterback here who's about to pass the egg, and we've got 95 coming in to sack him from the right. Here the quarterback has just passed the egg, so there's no need for a tackle, but number 95 does not see that he just passed the egg, so he's going to continue with the tackle anyway. So looking at that from another angle, see this is a very awkward tackle because he's pulling the quarterback to the ground, and I highlight this point here because this appears to be the first point where the quarterback's knee touches the ground. In hand-egg, a tackle is defined as one body part other than the hands or feet touching the ground. There have been some incredible plays where you swear someone has gone down, the player pops back up with the egg, passes it laterally behind the line of scrimmage, and the other player runs off and gets a touchdown. When you review the footage, you see that the initial apparent tackle was on top of other people. They were bouncing around, and the player was never actually out of play. So Garrett here needs to make sure that the quarterback is actually out of play because he thinks the quarterback still has the egg. Now the quarterback, you already see, is laying hands on Garrett and attempting to remove his helmet because, as I said, it's an unnecessary tackle because he didn't have the egg, and it was an awkward tackle. So the quarterback feels pushed around, and he is understandably upset. But this is the initial point where the conflict starts. So the quarterback is starting the conflict. He's starting it by trying to pull off Garrett's helmet. At this point, 66 and 71 are intervening to pull Garrett 95 apart from Rudolph number 2. And as 66 pulls them both up to their feet, Garrett, understandably upset that he was just attacked by the quarterback, and the quarterback just attempted to pull his helmet off. He pulls off the helmet of the quarterback. Now, you might say, and you'd be right, saying that he should not have done that, but he was entirely justified. Now, number 95, Garrett, is walking away from the conflict with 66 in tow, and 71 also in tow. Presumably 71 thinks Garrett is the problem, and he neglects to hold the quarterback down, and the quarterback gets up and is charging after Garrett. So here's the second point at which the incident is escalated by the quarterback. And I want to take a moment here to highlight that 53 is coming into the scene. Presumably he just saw Garrett pull off number 2's helmet, so he's understandably upset here, and what he sees coming in after this is going to set him off. So now Garrett is being pursued by the quarterback, and perceptibly he's being pursued by 66, 71, and 53. I don't know if he sees 53 yet, but since he's already in retreat, he clearly feels exasperated, and all there is to do is to take a swing at the helmet. Hopefully that will stop the forward assault. Now, perhaps there are other things he could have done. Perhaps he just could have waited for other people to pull everyone off of him. I don't know, but the point is that it is a purely defensive maneuver on Garrett's part. 53 now sees Garrett hit the quarterback with the helmet, and he is justifiably absolutely livid. So he runs around, punches Garrett to the ground. 66 falls on top of Garrett, and still, my compliments to 66. He is not escalating anything. He's actually serving more as a body shield to Garrett at this point. And number 53 proceeds to kick and punch Garrett in the helmet. I want to highlight here in the background 65, Larry Ogojobi, who had just pushed Rudolph to the ground. I'll recap that again later. 71 did not see that, but as soon as he turns around, sees number 2 on the ground. He steps in between number 2 and 65. So looking at that from another angle, 65 runs up and pushes 2 to the ground. 71 didn't see what happened, but he turns around, sees number 2 on the ground, steps between number 2 and 65. So those are all the bits and pieces. Let me play everything back in slow motion. Here's the snap. Quarterback has the egg. Garrett is coming in from the right for a tackle. The egg is passed off, but Garrett does not see the pass. The tackle proceeds. It is awkward. Quarterback gets whipped around and pulled down to the ground eventually. Quarterback doesn't like that because it was an unnecessary tackle, so he lays hands on Garrett and tries to pull his helmet off. 71 and 66 are moving in to break up the scuffle. .66 is pulling them all back up to their feet. Garrett takes revenge, pulls off the helmet, and he's now moving away. Whoop. Now he gets the helmet off, and now he's moving away. 71 neglects to block the quarterback. Quarterback comes in for a second escalation here. Garrett is exasperated, and he just takes a swing with the helmet. 53 only sees Garrett's action. He's livid, so he comes around, starts punching. Quarterback is standing, and Larry comes in, not sure why, just pushes him down. 71 turns back, sees, he's got to protect the quarterback again, so he steps in between him and 65. And that's it. And just read through one more time. I know this is over the details. Number 2 passed the egg just prior to the tackle. 95 proceeded with the tackle, thinking that 2 still had the egg. The tackle is awkward. 95 goes down first, but has to pull 2 down with him. 2 is mad because the tackle is unnecessary and attempts to pull 95's helmet off, initiating the original conflict. 66 comes in to intervene and pulls 95 apart from 2. 95 retaliates by moving number 2's helmet. Maybe he should not have done that, but I do believe he was justified. 95 then walks away from the conflict with the escort of 66. 71 apparently is backing up 66, but neglects to hold number 2 back. So number 2 gets up and charges after 95, further escalating the conflict. 95 is already in retreat, and he feels pursued by 2 people, 66 and the quarterback. Perhaps he also saw 71 and 53 approaching him, and he swings the helmet in apparent exasperation. Now, somewhat separately from that, number 53 only saw 65 pulling off 2's helmet and hit him with it, so he runs in and punches 95 to the ground. 66 falls on top and serves as a body shield, and 53 proceeds to kick and punch 95 in the head. Also, apparently separately, but happening at the same time, 65 runs up and pushes 2 to the ground. I'm not clear on his motivation. 71 didn't see what happened, but he turns around, sees number 2 on the ground, steps between number 2 and 65. The reason why I'm paying so much attention to this and why it bothers me so much is that every story I've read on this, I read Fox News, CNN, a few others, NPR is one, they all describe number 95 pulling off number 2's helmet and hitting him with it. And they all have some still frames of 95 either pulling off the helmet or hitting number 2 with it. And they describe the fines and penalties, but they never seem to describe what led to the escalation. It was actually difficult to find the video of the initial escalation. So I just felt a need to talk about it. And going through some of the fines, we have number 65, the guy who ran up at the end and just pushed the quarterback down for no apparent reason. He has a 1-game suspension. Now, I think that's pretty reasonable. Marquise Pouncey, number 53, the guy who beat 95 to the ground and then punched and kicked him in the head, he has a 3-game suspension. I think that's fairly reasonable at all. Now, Myles Garrett, the guy who did not do any escalation, he gets indefinite suspension. And you could say he should have not pulled the guy's helmet off. He could have been the bigger man, yes. So I can see suspension being justified there. And you can say he could have waited for other people to break up the fight. He didn't need to throw the helmet over the guy's head. So I can see there being a suspension there too. Maybe 1, maybe 2 games. Now, pulling someone's helmet off in hand egg, that is a serious offense just due to the size of the guys on the field and the level of danger to impacts to the head. But I want to point out Mason Rudolph, no penalties whatsoever. And this is the only guy, except you could argue number 65 at the end, and maybe 53. He did escalate things as well. But all of the primary escalations of the conflict are from the quarterback, Mason Rudolph. And Mason Rudolph isn't receiving any penalties or fines whatsoever. Both the Browns and the Steelers were levied a $250K fine each. But the center of the conflict, nothing. And that is what bothered me. The lack of balanced coverage on every media source and the lack of balanced penalties. It seems so wholly unbalanced that I just can't wrap my head around it. I should probably explain, when I say hand egg, it is a beautiful sport, but I'm hung up on the naming convention. It's more commonly referred to as football of North America or North American football. But that doesn't make sense either, because football in both Canada and Mexico are football. It's more accurately called football of the United States, but even that doesn't really make sense because we have football here. We call it soccer. And I understand soccer, the term originated in England, but it's still a sport that's more appropriately termed football because you compete with your feet over a ball. Whereas in hand egg, you compete mostly with your hands over an egg. So I'm just hung up over the naming convention.